Hey, what's happening, everybody? So, today I'm going to be reading some quotes from this book right here. Can you see that? It's The Life of Jimi Hendrix. Excuse me while I kiss the sky. And this is by David Henderson. It says right there on the bottom. And I got this book back in the 80s, early 80s, and I read it. I read it a bunch of times back in the 80s, on my way to high school, on the bus, in the 90s too. I mean, I read this book so much that bam, it just cut in half just from opening it so much. But it tells the whole story of Hendrix in pretty great detail. But yeah, I just wanted to read some different quotes from Jimi Hendrix. And if you don't know, today is November 27th. It would have been his 78th birthday. So he was born in 1942. And Jimi Hendrix is like my biggest influence on the guitar. As a musician in general, though, it's really his whole way of writing and looking at the world, and I could relate to it a lot. And those rhythms, that soloing, the improvisation, is really what really influenced me a lot. He was very much into being in the moment when he would play, and which is what I love to do. You know, I don't like to play a song the same way twice, so really learned that from him. So yeah, I just wanted to read some stuff because there's the whole image of Jimi Hendrix, which is just sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's all there is. But there's a lot more to the guy. He was a lot more deeper than that. So yeah, I wrote down some pages here. So let's get to these pages. Let's see. I can explain everything better through music. You hypnotize people to where they go right back to their natural state, which is pure positive, like childhood when you got natural highs. And when you get people at weakest point, you can preach into the subconscious what we want to say. That's why the name Electric Church flashes in and out. There's no telling how many lives your spirit will go through, die, and be reborn. Like my mind will be back in the days when I was a flying horse. Before I can remember anything, I can remember music and stars and planets. I could go to sleep and write 15 symphonies. I had very strange feelings that I was here for something, and I was going to get a chance to be heard. I got the guitar together because that was all I had. I used to be really lonely. A musician, if he's a messenger, is like a child who hasn't been handled too many times by man, hasn't had too many fingerprints across his brain. That's why music is so much heavier than anything you've ever felt. All right, so let's go to another one. There really are other people in the solar system, and they have the same feelings too. Not necessarily bad feelings, but see, it upsets their way of living, for instance, and they are a whole lot heavier than we are. It's no war game because they all keep the same place. But like the solar system is going through a change soon, and it's going to affect the Earth in about 30 years, There's no whole lot of religions, just one link, because there's only a few chosen people that supposedly are to get this across. These chosen people in the process are now being distracted. They are drowning themselves. In order to properly save them, they've got to take a break from people. All right. Moving on. Let's see. This is cool right here, something he wrote. Forget of my name. Remember it only as a handshake. Introduction to my belief, which is God. Ride instead the waves of my interpreter. Music, sound, hypnotic if you choose. But truth and life, regardless of your questionable, timid compromises, which I intend to erase, which I will erase without hint of reward, as I am only a messenger, and you, a sheep in process of evolution. Almost at death with yourself, and on the staircase of birth. Soon you may almost forget the smell of your family. Some deep stuff, man. So let's go over to another one. There are a lot of things you have to sacrifice. It all depends on how deep you want to get into whatever your gig is, whatever you're there for. So like the deeper you get into it, the more sacrifices you have to do. Maybe even on your personality or your outward this and that. I just dedicate my whole life to this whole art. You have to forget about what other people say. If it's art or anything else, whatever you really, really dig doing, you have to forget about what people say about you sometimes. Forget about this or forget about that. When you're supposed to die or when you're supposed to be living. You have to forget about all these things. You have to go on and be crazy. That's what they call craziness. Craziness is like heaven. Once you reach that point of where you don't give a damn about what everybody else is saying, you're going toward heaven. The more you get into it, they're going to say, damn, that cat's really flipped out. Oh, he's gone now. But if you're producing and creating, you're getting closer to your own heaven. That's what man's trying to get to anyway. What's happening is we all have these different senses. We've got eyes, nose, hearing, taste, and feeling, and so forth. Well, there's a sixth sense that's coming in. Everybody has their own name for it, but I call it free soul. And that's more into that mental kind of thing. That's why everything is beyond the eyes now. The eyes only carry you so far out. You have to know how to develop other things that will carry you further and more clear. That's why the fastest speed. What's the fastest speed you can think of? They say the speed of light is the fastest thing. That's the eyes. But then there's the speed of thought, which is beyond that. You can get on the other side of this theme in a matter of thinking about it, for instance. Sometimes you might be by yourself writing something, and you come across some words, and you just lay back and dig the words and see how that makes you feel. And you might take it at practice or rehearsal or something like that and get together with it there in music. See how the music feels. Or either sometimes you might be jamming. When I mean you, I mean the group. The group is jamming or something. And then you might run across something really nice. And then you keep running across that. Then you start shouting out anything that comes to your mind, you know. Whatever the music turns you on to. If it's heavy music, you start singing things. Once you have the bottom there, you can go anywhere. That's the way I believe. Once you have some type of rhythm, like it can get hypnotic if you keep repeating it over and over again. Most of the people will fall off by about a minute of repeating. You do that, say, for 3 or 4 or even 5 minutes if you can stand it. And then it releases a certain thing inside of a person's head. It releases a certain thing in there so you can put anything you want right inside that. So you do that for a minute, and all of a sudden you can bring the rhythm down a little bit, and then you say what you want to say right into that little gap. It's something to ride with, you know. You have to ride with something. I always like to take people on trips. That's why music is magic. Already this idea of living today is magic. There's a lot of sacrifices to make. I'm working on music to be completely, utterly a magic science, where it's all pure positive. It can't work if it's not positive. The more doubts and negatives you knock out of anything, the heavier it gets, and the clearer it gets, and the deeper it gets into whoever's around it. It gets contagious. It's time for a new national anthem. America is divided into 2 definite divisions. And this is good for one reason. Because like something has to happen, or else you can just keep on being dragged along with the program, which is based upon the past and is always dusty. And the grooviest part about it is not all this old-time thing that you can cop out with. The easy thing to cop out with is saying black and white. That's the easiest thing. You can see a black person, but now, to get down to the nitty-gritty, it's getting to be old and young. Not the age, but the way of thinking. Old and new, actually. Not old and young. Old and new, because there's so many even older people that took half their lives to reach a certain point that little kids understand now. They don't really get a chance to express themselves. So therefore, they grab onto what is happening. That's why you had a lot of people at Woodstock. You can say all the bad things, but why keep elaborating? You have to get to the whole balls of it. That's all you can hold on to in the arts, which is the actual earth, the actual soul of earth, like writing and saying what you think, getting into your own little thing, doing this and doing that. As long as you're off your ass and on your feet some kind of way, out of bed and into the street. You know, like after death is the end and the beginning, and it's time for another anthem, and that's what I'm writing on now. Nice. All right, so I'll go over to another one. So this is the afternoon before he died. He died on September 18th, 1970, but this is September 17th. He and Monica sat close together in the garden of the Samarkand Hotel. He seemed rushed, yet very much into communicating several things to her at once. On Monica's drawing pad, he drew 9 times, each 9 inside the other, flowing out like a nova. Looked a little bit like an Egyptian eye or a medieval sun. He talked of 9 consciousness as being the highest form of the intelligences. He then placed the drawings of the 9 concentric nines against the reproduction of the solar system and talked about the radiation of the 9 consciousness throughout the Milky Way. The 2 luminaries and the 7 planets collectively were 9 consciousness. Within the secrets of numbers were insights into the grand design. Monica found it difficult to grasp the meaning of the figures and symbols, but Jimi pressed on, urging her to remember it all, to remember all he said, even if she did not understand at the very moment. He knew she was a very visual and trained painter. She would be able to reproduce what he said on canvas. With that in mind, he began to dictate some paintings. A cross superimposed upon the earth with faces of the 4 races. One evil, one enlightened from each race was the first of a series of paintings. He called them cross paintings that were to be done. You must remember this, he said. You must remember all I'm telling you. I wonder if those paintings ever happened, you know. I'd like to see those. And if you ever heard the last thing that he wrote before he lied in bed and died, a poem, usually what you hear is only the last 4 lines or the last 8 lines or so. But this is the whole poem right here. Before he knocked out and moved on, this is what he wrote. The story of Jesus, so easy to explain. After they crucified him, a woman, she claimed his name. The story of Jesus, the whole Bible knows, went all across the desert, and in the middle, he found a rose. There should be no questions. There should be no lies. He was married ever happily after, for all the tears we cry. No use in arguing, all the use to the man that moans. When each man falls in battle, his soul, it has to roam. Angels of heaven, flying saucers to some, made Easter Sunday the name of the rising sun. The story is written by so many people who dared to lay down the truth, to so very many who cared to carry the cross of Jesus and beyond. We will gild the light, this time with a woman in our arms. We as men can't explain the reason why, the woman always mentioned at the moment that we die. All we know is God is by our side. And he says the word, so easy, yet so hard. I wish not to be alone, so I must respect my other heart. Oh, the story of Jesus is the story of you and me. No use in feeling lonely. I am you, searching to be free. The story of life is quicker than the wink of an eye. The story of love is hello and goodbye. Until we meet again.